In other news, fighting is continuing in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, despite plans for a ceasefire. Nearly 200 people have been killed since violence erupted between the military and the paramilitary group at the weekend. Millions of people are trapped in their homes. Supplies of food and water are reported to be running low.
It was supposed to be a 24-hour truce. It lasted just minutes. Fresh gunfire brought an abrupt end to the calm so many here in Khartoum have been craving. After 4 days of heavy fighting, there are few signs of life on the streets of Khartoum. Residents are spending the last and holiest days of Ramadan hiding in their homes as the battle roars on outside their windows.
With Ramadan, we've reached the point where honestly we don't know which day we are in Ramadan. We usually it's like a feast, you know, when it comes to breaking our fast, it's like a feast and everyone's excited and everyone's ready for the food. But it honestly all tastes bland. We barely eat anymore because I think everyone's stressed and is on anxiety.
The clashes have all but cut off supplies of food, leaving many civilians to fear for their survival.
The longer this war lasts, the longer we're going to have people starve and people go through situations where now they have to steal and they have to try to really live.
The World Health Organization has warned that medical supplies could also soon dry up.
There are disturbing reports of some health facilities being looted and others being used for military purposes. It's also reported that some hospitals are already closed or on the brink of closure due to attacks and the lack of medical personnel and medical supplies.
The bitter battle between Sudan's two most powerful generals is threatening to turn into a humanitarian crisis, with fears mounting that it could have ripple effects across the region.
And for more, let's bring in Gerrit Kurtz, a political scientist with the research group Africa and Middle East at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs in Berlin. Thank you so much for joining us. As we've been hearing, the fighting continues despite claims of a ceasefire. Walk us through what has led to this escalation of violence.
Yeah, good morning. Good to join you today. Indeed, the fighting that started on Saturday was the end result of an escalatory spiral of mistrust between these two parties, the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces. They have been rivals for years, but in the last few weeks, there were intense discussions about handing over power from the military to a civilian government, and there was disagreement between these two forces what would happen with regard to the RSF and the SAF in their integration, and who would control the RSF during this interim period of a civilian government.
How high is your hope for a negotiated resolution, or is the likelihood that we could see a long civil war, a protracted conflict here?
I mean, we are now on day 5 of this war, of this fighting. I think it's too soon to speak of a protracted situation, but also we are nowhere near a solution. The breakdown of this latest ceasefire attempt just underlines how difficult it is even to get small commitments honored by the parties. So getting them to permanently stop fighting will be even harder.
Who do you think is in the best position to try and influence that? I mean, we've seen in the past days, the latest ceasefire, for example, was pushed by the United States. How much leverage do international donors and partners have over the situation?
Well, both sides were at least apparently eager to speak to Secretary Blinken from the US. So that was a positive sign, even though, of course, they didn't honor what they said they would do. I think important are especially the Arab partners of these conflict parties, meaning Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, and together with some Western countries such as the United States or the UK and the EU, if they act together, they can exert some leverage on these parties.
Garrett, if you could just tell us, what do you think the situation is for civilians right now, especially in the capital, Khartoum?
Yeah, I think we also heard it in the report that you brought just before. It's absolutely devastating. Civilians can't go out. They don't have enough water, not enough food. They're being shot at in the streets. If they try to go somewhere, if there is some quiet in the fighting in their neighborhood, their cars might be stolen or they might be attacked by criminals that are also reportedly looming around. So it's a very dire situation.
Garrett Kurtz, political scientist with the research group Africa and Middle East at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date and that analysis of the situation in Sudan.
You're welcome.
And we are joined now by Mohammed Amin, a journalist based in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. Mohammed, what is the situation on the ground this morning?
Yes, this morning, and despite the truce, the temporary ceasefire that agreed yesterday between the two sides, but the fighting is ongoing, and this today's morning has witnessed the most heaviest airstrikes actually in the entire locations of the RSF. As well as in and around the army headquarters. So it's basically the SAF, the National Army, is strongly using airstrikes against the RSF locations. So I can say today that today is the most aggressive day of fighting since early morning of this fifth day of the clashes between the paramilitary of the RSF and the National Army.
Why did the brokered truce not last?
It's for many reasons, actually, the mistrust between the two sides because of the long disputes and the aggressive war and the big amount of soldiers that being killed from the two sides. So also the people do not trust those two men because of what has happened actually over the past years and what happened actually over the past 4 days. So also we have experienced that the two sides have, it's not the first time that they violated the truce that they agreed upon, because on Sunday they gave a promise of 4 hours truce, but they also violated it. So the fighting is aggressive and it's continued. And as you said, it has been badly affected on the humanitarian situation, especially the situation of the hospitals. As the doctors committee just said this morning that 39 hospitals out of 59 has gone out of coverage totally because they come under fire, or because of the cut of electricity, or running out of medicines and equipment, and even the cadres, I mean the doctors who cannot go outside their homes to the hospitals to help the people.
Mohammed Amin, journalist in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, thank you so much for joining us to tell us a little bit more about the situation there.